All right, welcome back to the podcast, everybody. In this episode, we have special guest Ida Hamer. Ida is a television journalist and reporter for RTL who was raised in Zagreb, went to the UK for school, and decided to move back to Croatia and start her career. She also started and runs the project Stranac u Hrvatskoj, where she interviews foreigners who moved to Croatia about their experience and why they decided to live there. In this episode, we're going to learn more about her, her projects, and her interviews. Ida, thanks for coming on the podcast.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate you taking the time to come on here, the All Things Croatia podcast. I'd first seen you, I forget how many months ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, for your Stranac u Hrvatskoj project, where, of course, you're talking to people not from Croatia who are here in Croatia. But before we sort of get into that, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I know you were born and raised in Zagreb. What was that like for you growing up?
I think, can you tell us a bit about yourself is one of the hardest questions always, because then you need to tell us something about yourself, and I'm always very bad at it. Actually, yeah, I was born in Zagreb, and my parents are from Zagreb, but I spent my childhood in Zabok, which is in Zagorje. Then we moved back to Zagreb when I went to high school, and then after that, I went to the UK to study. Uh, in my high school, I used to love theater. I was acting in a theater in a musical, which made me really happy. And during my high school, I decided to move to the UK. So then I was kind of working towards that. And I don't know what else to say.
Well, so you were still in high school when you moved to the UK. I thought just for
No, I moved to the UK to go to the university, but during my high school, somewhere when I was, let's say, my first grade or second grade, actually, it was, I think, second grade, we went to our trip with a school to London as I was attending bilingual school. So it was also kind of part of the whole project to go to London. So we went to London and I kind of fell in love with London at the time. And that's when I actually really like made a decision to go and study there, even though I always kind of dreamed of going to study somewhere abroad. But that was the time when I actually decided, okay, I want to go to study abroad definitely. And I, at the time, still didn't know it's going to be actually UK. There were many different places in my mind that I was reconsidering, but the UK was the one in the end where I ended up.
And how did you like it over there? I mean, it's got to be, I've never been to the UK, but I would imagine it's completely different than Croatia.
Uh, it was a big challenge for me, I need to say that. When you're like, I just turned 19 when I moved to the UK, and you kind of have that feeling that you're a grown up, but you're actually not a grown up. You are getting there, but you are still not there exactly. And I thought, that I've got everything, that I'm a grown up. But then when you actually go somewhere where you're so far away from your whole support system, your family, your friends, from everything that you've known and where you actually, grew up, and you put yourself in a completely different culture with completely new challenges, it is perhaps that's the time when you realize, okay, now I actually need to be that grown up, and you need to actually um, take care of yourself in the whole sense of that word. I found a job. I was working throughout my whole studies, and at the time when I got there, I didn't know a single person on the island. I later on reconnected with my relative who actually lived in London, so she was kind of here and then took me with her to London on weekends because I was not in London. I moved to Northampton, which is 45 minutes with a train to London. So sometimes over the weekends, I would go to see her, and then she would take me to all these amazing places. But at the time, I didn't know a single person on the whole island, so it was very challenging for me, and it was a big cultural shock, definitely. You know, the weather is not the weather like what it's like in Croatia. So the whole, you know, raining part and the darkness, like it was autumn and then winter, and um, actually the dark started to fall down very quickly, and the rain and the wind, that was like very depressing for me, because you know, now even like in November we had, you know, sunny days. Even now today was sunny outside.
Mhm.
So that was challenging, and you know, the coffee culture that they don't have and we have it, where you know, you just sit down with your friends and have a cup of coffee, and then you talk about everything that bothers you. What was actually a big cultural shock for me were the mobile phones. Like everyone were constantly on their mobile phones, and I was a bit surprised by that, because even though we all, of course, had mobile phones in Croatia, when we were together, we were not using them so much. Like we were spending time with each other, joking around and stuff like that. And I kind of felt people are more virtually connected than we were virtually connected in Croatia. So all sorts of things like that kind of were very challenging for me. But I think that the experience that I gained there was the experience that I would never gain if I would have stayed in Croatia. Not only the educational part, because the educational system is much different from the one in Croatia, but also the life experience that I got, being away from my family, being away from my friends, and everything that I've known at the time, um, studying at a different language, working on a different language, operating completely on a different language. The funny thing is that when I got to the UK, I thought, well, I know English, but I was used to the American English. And then I heard British English, and I was like very confused for the first 2 weeks. Like it was completely different for me to understand it, and the jokes that they've made um, in their own dialects and stuff like that, I didn't understand. So I was kind of like panicking. How am I going to finish the university here? I don't understand anything they're saying. But then after 2 weeks, of course, it started to be much easier. But yeah, so good experience overall, good experience, good life experience. I really appreciate it with all of its challenges. I really appreciate that I had that experience because that experience actually showed me that perhaps positive sides of Croatia. Like now maybe I'm going off topic, but one of the reasons, like when I moved out of Croatia, I was a teenager, but I saw that some things are not working out here. Like I saw the corruption and nepotism and lack of opportunities, and I thought that, you know, the grass is greener. So I was kind of a bit perhaps frustrated with the government and with how everything works around here in Croatia. But then when I got to England, after a while, I actually realized what are the positives of our country. You know, we have this beautiful nature. We can be at the seaside in 2 hours if we want to. We still have that big connection with people around us. We have solidarity. I think people are much more connected with each other still here, and all sorts of things like that. So I think the opposite happened. I started to romanticize perhaps Croatia a bit more than, because I was homesick. But now I think that, and even when I came back to Croatia, I was full of optimism and motivation and energy, you know. And then I think I saw everything through pink glasses. But now I can say that I have a really realistic view about you know, both things. I have realistic view what is it like to live abroad, and I have a realistic view of what is it like to live in Croatia. Croatia is a beautiful country, but it has many of its problems, of course. But it is not necessarily true that the grass is always greener.
Well, having, both those experiences then, living in Croatia, thinking the grass is greener, going to the UK, and now coming back to Croatia, it sounds like you've decided that the benefits outweigh the pros outweigh the cons coming back and living in Croatia.
People always ask me, why have you came back? When I actually came back, people were so shocked, and that was the time when all of my peers, the my generation, they went abroad. Like many of my friends went abroad to study, or they went abroad later on in their lives, and some of them are still there living abroad. So it was a time where it was very popular to move out of Croatia, and I was the person who came back. And that was something that was very shocking for people in Croatia. Like, when I would see somebody on the street that I don't perhaps really know, I don't know the person, like neighbor or somebody like that, people would ask me like, oh my God, why have you moved back? And they were so shocked and surprised, like the bombs are falling down around us. And I didn't have like, it was kind of like, not so motivational for a young person to be coming back to their home country, and people were so shocked, and they approach you like you've made a wrong decision. But I understand where they are coming from. I did understand that at the time, and I understand it now. um, but my answer is not a complicated one. I just decided when I finished the university, it's time to go back home. Like that's it. Like I just said to myself, okay, I'm going back home. So there's nothing complicated um, behind that decision. It's just that I wanted to go home. That's all.
hmm But are you happy here now that you've been, how long has it been since you returned?
It's been 5 years now.
Okay.
Am I happy? Uh, I would say that sometimes I wonder what would life be like for me if I have stayed, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not happy here. Actually, I have made a great life here for myself. I do the job that I like. I'm living with my boyfriend. We have our friends surrounding us, our family surrounding us. We have opportunity, to make little trips, whether that's somewhere inside of Croatia or in the neighboring countries or somewhere else. So I think that I never, when people ask me whether I've regretted my decision to move back to Croatia, no, I haven't, and I don't think I ever will. And if I ever feel that I'm regretting it, I probably will move abroad again. I never actually said to myself, okay, I'm going back to Croatia and I'm never moving out of Croatia again. No, that's not true. If I will not be satisfied with my life at some point, perhaps I will look to other options. But at the moment, I'm really satisfied how everything is turning out for me. So, um, and there's, the thing is, there's a hard work behind it. Like you can't just accept that your life is going to be perfect. You need to work hard to get the life that you want, and you need to be realistic enough to understand that for some things you need to be patient, and whether that's abroad or here, you need to make your life good for yourself. And that does not necessarily mean that your life is going to be much better if you move abroad. Maybe you will have much more opportunities. Maybe you will have great job and great experience, but maybe you will miss your friends or your family. There are always pros and cons for every country, whether that's your home country or a country that's somewhere else. So I think, it depends what you want in your life.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a very well-spoken answer for a tough question. Sorry to put you on the spot. Are you happy? The toughest
No,
question.
no, it's okay. It's a legitimate question. It's a question to think about, though.
Yes, yes.
Definitely. Like now, I was like, yeah, but it's a legitimate question.
Well, one more question for you about sort of the UK before we get into your career and what you're doing now as far as journalism and reporting. I've heard, you see on the internet a bunch of memes and stuff about the food over in England, and that, it's pretty bland, and coming from Croatia, which, is culturally rich with food, different types of foods, and good food. Did you notice anything? Is that a true stereotype about England?
I don't want to offend anyone, but to be quite honest, like my first shock was I came to England, came to Northampton, and the first thing was, right, I'm here now. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna, drink a cup of coffee somewhere. So I went to this pub. Wrong thing to drink coffee in a pub. So I went to this pub and I ordered coffee and I ordered cappuccino and I got it in a really big mug and it was like a soup. And I was like, what's this? And it didn't take like coffee, it tasted like milk with perhaps, slightest sip of coffee. So it took me a while to get used to English coffees, and I always took some coffee with me when I was moving back to Croatia. When I was going back to Croatia to visit my family and friends over the holidays, I would always take Croatian coffee with me back to England, and then I was making myself a Turkish coffee at home
Wow,
because
really?
I can't live without it, and I never anywhere managed to find something that would be similar like that when we are talking about this commercial coffee shops in the UK. When it comes to food, to be quite honest, they are not eating healthy. And that concerned me because I was like, okay, I don't want to be that student that's going to eat frozen food constantly, frozen pizza and chicken nuggets, and who's going to eat fast food and stuff like that. I'm not raised like that. There's always needs to be some soup, at least once or twice a week, mix it up a bit. So actually, I was very often I would cook for myself at home, and I really was trying to be careful about what I'm eating because I didn't want to develop bad habits. The food is not amazing there. I need to say that it's not, and I'm really sorry. I don't want to offend anyone. However, they do have, perhaps in London, for example, plenty of restaurants and so many rich cultures where you can try Vietnamese. You can try, I don't know, even Croatian food. You can try food Italian from all sorts of different countries. So you always have plenty of options, and of course, plenty of greatest restaurants are in London.
Mhm.
So I think that my answer is no, the food is not perhaps the best in the UK. However, they do have plenty of different options where you can, try out some great stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure in London it's a big city. There's plenty of, diversity as far as food goes. But
Yes,
you don't.
definitely. Definitely. I'm planning to go to the UK in March, fingers crossed, to see my friends there. So, like, I'm just, now thinking about some restaurants where I wanna eat some food that we don't perhaps have here in Croatia.
Yeah, it's true. Although Zagreb is starting to get, I've noticed more and more restaurants from, different diverse backgrounds.
It is, and I'm completely thrilled about it. Couple of years, there weren't so many. So, sorry, it's my alarm or something. I'm just gonna take it off. I'm so sorry. Okay.
No worries. Are we short on time?
Uh, no, no, no. I've got
Okay.
time. That's for something else. Just a reminder. Sometimes I put alarm to remind myself of the things that I actually need to do. Yeah. But where were we?
Um, I was talking
Zagreb
a
and
couple years
food.
ago, the food in Zagreb
Yeah,
restaurants.
yeah. So I'm completely thrilled that there are some great stuff to try here as well.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Ida, I want to ask you about, your career now. You're a reporter slash journalist for RTL. How did that happen? Did you major in journalism at
Yeah,
university?
yeah.
And then from there,
It was multimedia journalism, and I need to say that I'm still in touch with my professors in the UK, and sometimes they ask me for something or I ask them for something, and I just want to take this opportunity to say that they've done a great job, and the reason that I wanted to go and study multimedia journalism in the UK was and to study abroad because I know that their educational system is much different, and we had plenty of practical work. Which I really appreciate today. And we weren't just, students. They really tried to approach to us as individuals, and we had small groups, so they were very, uh, they took time to actually be devoted to us as individuals, and they did took a lot of care that I feel comfortable there, knowing that I'm away from my friends and family. So just wanted to take this opportunity to say to them that I didn't forget that. But yeah, I did major in journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And
And then,
then you asked me how the RTL happened. I came back to Croatia and I started to look for a job, and I applied to many different many different jobs. And then the job opened at the RTL, and I applied for that too. And I had an interview, few circles of interviews, and then I passed, and here I am now.
what was your role at first coming on?
I was my role was a journalist, but I started from scratch. So I was doing desk journalism. So I was kind of doing we call it like shorter news that are airing at 4:30. So I started from that. Then after a while, I got an opportunity to do reports, then live reporting. So I started from scratch and now building it up.
Mm-hmm. And so now what are your responsibilities? I know you're doing the live reporting. I've seen some of that. Are you writing articles as well?
No, we don't write articles for television. However, I am also doing another job, which is I'm doing interviews with people who perhaps made some kind of difference in Croatian public space, like the actors or singers or architects or scientists or all sorts of different people. So I meet with them, I interview them, and then I write interviews down. So I am doing a bit of writing, but that's not for the RTL. At the RTL, we don't do articles. We do reports, television reports, and live reporting.
Mm-hmm. And that the interviewing that you just mentioned, what is that for? Where can people listening find those articles that you're writing in the interviews?
Razgovori.hr.
Okay.
Razgovori.hr. HR.
Uh, that took me a while. I did transition into my Croatian mindset for a little bit, and I'll put a link to that so people can check that out. Whoever's listening.
Yes.
Do you have a favorite, perhaps live report for RTL that you've done?
Sometimes people ask me what's my favorite thing that I've done. I don't know really. There are plenty of things that I really enjoyed working on. What really makes me happy is be the person who does good stories and stories that are positive or have some positive outcome. I really enjoy doing covering culture and covering happenings, whether that's music, theater, or something like that. And stuff like that makes me perhaps the most happy when I'm doing things like that. When it comes to something that's my favorite, I really enjoyed perhaps traveling to Indonesia with the RTL, which happened a while ago, a couple of years ago. We've done some travel reports from there, and that was like really good experience. We've done a lot of things, so it wasn't easy. It was like very, very high tempo, but actually it was amazing. It was just to see that nature, to meet those people. I met some Croatians who moved to Indonesia, spoke with them. So that's something that I'll probably certainly will remember for the rest of my life. And things like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
It's
feel like
it's hard to just say, this was the best. It's really hard.
I know I'm giving you tough questions here.
Yes.
I feel like you just mentioned, I feel like Croatians will always find a way to meet other Croatians, throughout all the world, no matter what.
That's certain. That's for sure. Like not just Croatian people from this area, whether it's from Bosnia or Serbia. Like when I was in the UK, we used to have this thing where we, from a couple of us from Croatia, would meet, make ourselves Turkish coffee, and then we would talk and hang out. And I've met some pretty great people, Croatian people in the UK, and basically I've met a friend. We are still in touch. He's from Serbia. He's living in the UK. So I think, and how we met is that we heard each other languages on the street. So I think that, when we are abroad, we are so great to each other, no matter from which neighboring countries you're coming from. I'm just not sure why this is sometimes not happening when we are actually in our own countries, which is very sad, but hopefully those things are going to change as well.
Yeah, well, that's a topic for someone who knows more than I do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you like positive and cultural type projects. I want to talk about Stranac u Hrvatskoj, which is a foreigner in Croatia, literally.
That would be literal translation, and it would be right. Yeah.
When did you come? How did you come up with that, and when? And what is it about?
So basically, when I moved back to Croatia, I kind of realized that there are many foreigners that moved to Croatia as well. Croatia didn't have so many people from abroad living in Croatia before. And I kind of felt that when we entered the European Union, that changed. And that was the time where I actually went to UK. So I felt like when I was in the UK, people just moved to Croatia. And then I came back from Croatia and I realized I went back to Croatia and I realized, okay, there are people from abroad living in Croatia as well. So I met a couple of them, and there are some meetups for foreigners who decided to move to Croatia, or Croatian diaspora moving to Croatia, or Croatians who moved abroad and now came back to Croatia. They are called International Business Meetup Club. So I actually it's an informal hanging out, just networking and talking about stuff you want to talk about. And I went on a couple of those meetings, and I realized that there are plenty of interesting people around me with plenty of interesting stories. So this is where I actually kind of realized after a while that it would be interesting to make reports about people who moved here, to hear their stories and what they like to share. And I always wanted that to be something positive. Like I wanted people from Croatia to meet those people and hear what are their problems and how do they find us, and what are they struggling the most with. And I wanted it to be like perhaps a bit educational, but also informal and fun and positive. And so I've done that project. That project was aired last year for around 8 months, every Friday on RTL Danas, on our main news. I'm actually very proud how that all turned out to be. We had almost million, no, more than million, around million views on social media when you look at all of those reports. So I think that those numbers actually show me that people were interested to see and hear different stories from foreigners who decided to move to Croatia. And I've met so many interesting people with interesting stories. And I'm very grateful that they actually all, I don't think that anyone refused me. Perhaps, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 people perhaps refused to share their story with me, but they were all very open-minded, and I'm very grateful they let me into their homes, their businesses, and to, with an open heart, tell me why they are here. And those were the stories for me that actually reminded me why Croatia is a beautiful country, because foreigners see the things that we sometimes take for granted. And those are perhaps the reasons why they moved here, because the country is safe, because the weather is nice, because the people are nice, because the food is awesome, because the nature is beautiful, and there are so many things that you can do here. And also it's so well connected with the rest of the world. So I think they reminded me why Croatia is beautiful, and I really hope that those stories inspired somebody,
I
because
really
at times they certainly inspired me.
I really think it's a great thing what you're doing, and I'm really a big fan of it. Did you receive sort of any common answers, in these questions that they're asking, that you're asking them, as to why did they come to Croatia and do they like it?
Um, everyone said that, almost everyone said that people are great, and almost everyone said that the streets are safe and that the country is beautiful. Everyone mentioned nature. But there are some common problems that bother them, and these are our bureaucracy and language that they all consider to be very hard. Um, so what else? I think those two things were actually something that they were repeating the most.
Yeah, I agree that the language is tough. I'm learning myself Croatian, and when you mentioned earlier in the beginning that you were spending a lot of time in Zagorje, first thing I thought it was, oh, like I wouldn't be able to understand anything over there. Dialect.
I can understand that. Well, Croatian language is a hard language. It's really a hard language. And sometimes when I would ask people whether they want to be interviewed in Croatian or in English, they would say, "Oh, can we please do it in English? My Croatian is very bad." But sometimes they would say a sentence or two or three in Croatian, and then I would really appreciate the effort they're making. So I know it takes a lot of time, and we all understand that. However, it's always nice to hear somebody trying. But if you can't speak any Croatian, that's completely fine with us as well, because I think that majority of Croatian people are okay with English. They speak English or understand English at least.
I think it might even be one of the highest in Europe of like English literacy levels. I think Croatia has a very high like English speaking population. But yeah, Croatians do always appreciate, in my personal experience, when you try to speak Croatian, even though I know I'm messing up all the padeji and everything.
Padeži are awful, even for us.
Um, but yeah, the Stranac u Hrvatskoj, where can people find that? That's a really cool thing that you're doing, and I think a lot of people listening would be interested in, hearing some of the stories of these people. You said that's on RTL Danas?
Yeah, so it was aired last year. Now we took a little break from that. However, you can still find the reports that I've done before on some of our social media and on our website. So I can if anyone interested, I can send you the links. Message me on Instagram or somewhere, and I will be happily to share you some links.
Yes, and I'll include all the links that you would like in the episode description so people can, who are listening can click on those. Ida, before I let you go, as I think I went a little over time what I told you this was going to
No,
be.
it's fine. It's completely fine because I know that I can talk a lot, so maybe I actually went over time.
It's all great stuff though, all really interesting stories, and what you're doing is really cool. What do you have as far as future plans?
Uh, I want to still be very focused on my job. That's my priority at the moment. But I've always been like that. I just really like to keep myself busy. And especially if I'm doing things that I enjoy, I just really want to uh, be able to put myself out there completely. So I want to continue to building my career. I think that there are perhaps I really hope there are some great stuff ahead of me. Hopefully some great projects in the future, some new perhaps series like Foreigner in Croatia, perhaps something like that or something different. I don't know. I really want to be focused on my career, and I want to be focused on my friends and family, and just spending my time with them, and also taking every free time that I have to be able to go and travel somewhere. I love traveling, but I just sometimes don't have enough time, and also the coronavirus kind of as well did perhaps messed up the tempo of traveling that I used to perhaps had. Um, but I think it was for all of us. It was quite stressful. So yeah, these are my plans. Nothing really very exciting.
Well, I mean, it's
Just
all
normal stuff.
yeah, if you're continuing what you're doing now, I mean, it's all exciting because what you're doing now is exciting. You're doing some really cool stuff. And I really appreciate you coming on the All Things Croatia podcast here. And yeah, I wish you the best of luck and excited to see, what you do in the future.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your kind words and thank you for inviting me.